All right, so as Scott was saying, we had a panel about hybrid cloud. We were looking at all these panels, and I'm like, how did I pull the short straw? Right? I get to talk about recession, right? This is the bad news, right? I'm sorry, the bad news panel. You turn on the news, 10, 11 o'clock, it's bad news, right? I'm like, how did I pull that straw? Well, the answer really is, right, we're not here to talk about the bad news. It's the good news. So let's just talk about the good news, right? I've had 2 recessions in my career. The first one was like the dot-com bust. That was 20 years ago, right, roughly. Well, what's the good news? Well, that's actually when Bridgepoint was founded. 20 years ago, this company was founded out of what potentially was the dot-com bust. Now, quite frankly, if I get these stories right, I'm not sure. Brian and Scott can keep me honest. I honestly don't know, how Brian Scott I probably do, but it's been like how they got to this, what happened in their careers at the time. I think, whether they're impacted by a reduction in force during the last recession, started Bridgepoint out of necessity. Brian is married to one of his sales reps. It might have been an HR incident. I'm not quite sure which one it is, But nonetheless, Bridgepoint was founded 20 years ago, right? And the first kind of deals that they were winning was Lumen, CenturyLink back then. How can I save you money on long distance, right? Cost optimization, right? So the good news is that we make money when people make change, right? So we transact business upon change. So if change is because they're reducing staff, if change is because they're doing cost optimization, if change is because they're trying to do optimization in their IT business, that's where we transact business, right? That's how we make money, is when someone changes something. So this isn't the bad news, this is the good news, right? We're here to celebrate the good news. We've talked about IT budgets, they're not really being cut. We've talked about where the money's gonna be focused on security and automation, right? So this is not the bad news panel, it's the good news panel. I'm a glass half full, not half empty kind of guy. So I may have drawn the short straw, we'll try to make this interesting. So to kind of start off with this, right, we're gonna do this a little bit differently. Instead of me introducing you guys, what I'd like to, introduce yourselves, what your role is at the company, and quite frankly, why you chose the panel. Now, if the answer is I didn't choose the panel, my channel manager assigned me to the panel, that's perfectly fine too. We're here, but love to kind of get a little background, and we'll start with you, Allison.
All right.
Are you on?
I'm already on? Okay. Well, it is so great to be here. I just cannot thank you all enough for the outstanding partnership that we experience at Lumen with Bridgepoint across the country. There are obviously lots of partners out there, but I have to say I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Bridgepoint team because of the level of sophistication that you play at. It really makes it fun for us when we get to partner with one of the deals you're bringing us into. I'd call out quickly as I'm introducing myself. This is a little bit of a first for Lumen. My role is actually running a direct sales team, so I'm not on the channel side. This is really important to you because I hope it demonstrates our commitment to just strengthening how we go to market with all of you as strategists. There definitely have been some bumpy roads along the way between all the different mergers and acquisitions that we've experienced, and I have tried to always be a champion for doing what's right for the client, and of course the key partners that we know influence how our clients buy. My role specifically is I'm the general manager of Southern California and Hawaii. People always laugh that I do the short end of the stick, my peers in the central region. I also have responsibility for our nationwide media and entertainment team. So we've got folks out of New York, here in LA, all around, and most recently, Dom and Brian poached our top rep from that team, who is now one of your strategists. No, I'm not bitter at all.
Thank you, Mike. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Mike Nowak, BCM1 CRO. I lead our BCM retail division, e-commerce and wholesale. Survived 2 separate business downturns. Right out of college, my welcome into college was the dot-com bust, working for IBM. That was pretty traumatic. So I've always kind of had my eye on the markets, and I've spent a lot of my time on strategy. I'm thrilled about the topic. Fascinated with it. There's some down things that are happening in the market. There's also ways and strategies around that. So looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thanks, Mike. Jody?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jody Hegeman. Yes, I've been in telecommunications 25 years. I started with AT&T when I was 21. I was part of the team that built AT&T Business Services, and I spent 18 years building as a product manager, so I'm a product manager by trade, and building AT&T's virtual private network services. So Comcast had recruited me over and said, what do you know about this SD-WAN thing? We need you to, that's next generation of networking. We want to move into the solution selling space. We're tired of everyone thinking of us as just a connectivity provider, and we're inviting you in to build SD-WAN for us. So today, like you said, right, we're old. We've seen all the ups, the downs. I've seen it with AT&T. I've seen it with Comcast. So we're excited to be on this panel to really talk about, right, what are we hearing from customers in terms of recession and spending and IT spend? And so my current role, Chief Evangelist for Comcast Business and Masergy. We're here to get you excited about the marriage of Comcast Business and Masergy together and what that all brings to the table to partners and customers.
Great, thank you, Jody. So let's just talk about where we are. We've talked a little bit about this already, right? Interest rates are rising. Where they're going to end, I don't know. We've actually had, more than a decade, maybe 2 decades of historical low interest rates, which I think many of us have probably benefited from. We can relate to it from a personal note and how we, kind of finance our homes, but curious to kind of understand how that impacts business. Talk a little bit about that today. Inflation rates at a 40-year high, right? So all kinds of things disrupting that. Supply chain disruptions, we talked a lot about that. Political instability, just in our own country. There's probably greater political division than I think, at least in my lifetime, that I can remember, or at least that I've been paying attention to. Impact of the war in Ukraine. Mel talked a little bit about that as far as kind of data center, gas prices, energy prices, right? There's a lot of crazy things happening there. Tensions, between U.S., China, Taiwan, supply chain, chip production. There's a lot of disruption happening. And our IT, decision makers are trying to navigate those times, really. It's a crazy place to be. When I look at times like this, and I look back at my own personal life, the decisions that we all make today and how we operate in the next year or two is how we're going to come out of this, right? The hard work, where you invest your time, where you invest your money, you can come out of this thing looking better than you went in, assuming that that's the direction this goes, right? That's what's happened to me personally. I think businesses that invested in the right places come out smelling sweet, right? So that's kind of where I look at it. Our job is to help business leaders navigate. So with that said, we'll start, with you, Mike. We're going to talk a little about inflation. We'll call it, cost of money. Interest rates are an all-time high. How do you see interest rates impacting businesses and the decisions that they make on, where they spend their money in the near-term future?
I appreciate it. I think there's probably a couple different aspects to answer that. I think first and foremost is trying to get a beat of what is going to happen with interest rates over time. We know that the inflation report came out today, and those that are tracking your stocks are probably disappointed by about 2 to 3%. The federal government, the Federal Reserve, is going to combat that. I think James Powell has been very aggressive to say how he's going to do that, and that's by quantitative tightening. So we do expect that that will happen. There's a number of folks like Jamie Dimon that also believes that this will continue on through 2023. So what happens with the cost of money as a consumer, your next home purchase, your mortgage, will be a higher cost than it was previously. So $1 million house, that payment now is up by a few percentage point increase. That may cause you to exit the housing market. Your credit cards, anyone having credit card debt, that will increase significantly as well. So borrowing costs. So consumers are going to be forced to rethink their spending habits. Corporations, their cost of money has just increased significantly. And I know I've been learning along the way, studying the debt markets, is that unlike a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, corporate debt varies often month to month, or maybe you're using a yearly or a few-year different term loan, which is costly for a business. So as an organization, you have to factor in these high interest rates and your spending power, and then that leads into corporate decisions on operational costs, layoffs, contraction, lack of innovation, et cetera. So a lot to it, fascinating topic. There's some downside, there's strategies on how to combat it.
So Mike, kind of follow-up question real quick too, right? BCM1 is the only privately held company on this stage. So you're not really kind of prone to kind of, stock market fluctuations. How do you see that as an advantage or disadvantage compared to maybe the other people on stage that may be, impacted by, just, news that may hit the market that has nothing to do with how their, performance may be?
I think it starts out with folks are not hanging on every word I say, right? Anything can be perceived as a negative or a positive. We have a private equity firm that is a strong performer. They want strong performance, so we have to answer for that. But we don't have to have the stress, I would say, as a publicly traded organization. And I think what's interesting is those that are publicly traded, your debt levels are in the spotlight. Before it was revenue. When you get into this stage, your debt becomes in the spotlight as well as your profit. So it's a lot to handle in the spotlight. I'll let those deal with that at this point.
Thank you, Mike. Allison, we'll kind of stay a little bit on topic about kind of cost of money and where to invest, right? So I said a little bit earlier, where you invest your time, where you invest your efforts, where you invest your money in times like this, you have to be very strategic about it because there's only so much to go around, right? So love to kind of understand from Lumen's perspective, where have you maybe shed some investments to kind of put some money back in the bank? And where are you making strategic investments in the business because you think that's where the future of Lumen is, really, right? And I think, we've talked a lot about that today, but Lumen wasn't on any of those panels, so love to hear.
No, thanks. It's an interesting one in light of several things Lumen has done over the last many decades, but most noteworthy this year, we did sell one of our assets, the Latin America network, for $2.7 billion. That transaction just closed with Apollo Group not too long ago. So really a big chunk of that will go to pay down debt. And I've watched, being at Lumen for 11 years, I've watched our company make very strategic decisions to ensure that we are always paying down that debt to put ourselves in a position to be able to withstand the tough times when they do come. Make sure those investors, as a publicly traded company, the street wants to have confidence and faith that you're going to be able to sustain the business, as well as continue to find areas of capital investment that make sense for growth. So right now, as we have reduced our capital investment strategy over the last couple of years, we are still putting billions of dollars towards infrastructure. Of course, the foundation of our business, having that very large, deep fiber footprint, and then security. Those would be the two areas I'd say are fundamental at our core where we're putting a lot of capital investment. Infrastructure, we're continuing to expand our fiber reach. We have a consumer business where we are actually deploying 1 million fiber connections annually. I know we don't sell to consumers here in this audience, but that benefits us because, of course, that fiber footprint is extending into business communities as well. We also have a significant strategy towards things we've been hearing a lot about today, hybrid networking as it relates to private cloud. So we're developing a strategy, or actually, I should say we're deploying a strategy to maximize the asset that is already in place, our fiber and all the many data centers, 2,200 data centers around the world, co-location, gateways, central offices, all the different names our companies that we've acquired have called them. We are building out compute and storage infrastructure that will enable that digital transaction, everything that's happening on the devices now, to have an ultra low latency experience. So at the end of this, we have North America very well built out today, but you will have a less than 5 millisecond round trip latency experience across that Lumen footprint. Certainly not going to displace AWS and Azure and GCP and Oracle and these guys. This is complementary to the many strategies that are already in place with the large corporations that we're seeing great interest from in that space. Touch briefly on security. This is, of course, a very broad area. There's lots of niche players that bring very sophisticated, specific practice areas into the security posture for our businesses that we support. Lumen thinks a lot about the network components. So being that we have this fiber footprint, we know it is a price eroding business. We are constantly thinking about how do we add value? How do we bring more to the table for our clients so they can maximize or utilize that network and still get some of those additional value-added things they need. Software-defined networking. How do you secure the edge? Of course, we saw the Gartner term, Secure Access Service Edge. Lumen is bringing a solution out to the market where it will make it very easy for a customer to stand that framework up. So a software-defined network with all the different 5 components of the framework of SASE. So that's something, I think we're starting to introduce that to the partner community now. It will have a digital buying experience. I don't know if that'll be perfect right out of the gate, but that's where we're really focused and spending a lot of time.
Cool. Thank you, Allison. So, you guys saw this slide earlier. A lot of experts agree there's a recession coming. Despite this, IT budgets are going to remain intact, and a vast majority of that spend's going to be focused on security. So you mentioned security. We've heard security in every conversation on this stage yet today, right? So I think there's a common trend in mind. Security is the forefront of every conversation, no matter what the topic is. With that said, Jody, tell me from a Comcast perspective, how does your future alignment of where Comcast is investing, money, product align with where the future of IT budgets seem to be going?
Sure. So our president likes to remind us every single day that all of us as Comcast Business and Masergy employees, every single day we are showing up working for a growth company. We do not spend time figuring out how we're going to lose less. We're always talking about mergers and acquisitions. How can we complement our assets that we have today? So Comcast Business, the acquisition of Masergy, that really filled in a lot of gaps. So you can understand myself as a product manager, Jody, we don't have international connectivity. We need more white glove service. We can all deliver products and services, but it's how they experience it. It's how you as partners experience it. And I'm giving you a product that you're putting your name on with customers. And so I have to think about, our budgets, where is it focused? We are focused on managed services, we are focused on security, and the acquisition of Masergy brought to, now we're a global company. We could not compete with the Lumens of the world if you had a customer that had a global opportunity. Now we're global, white glove treatment, and then also Masergy opportunities, very security focused, and Comcast infrastructure complements them. We can save cost for our Masergy implementation by 20 to 30% on the local access cost. So for many of you that were not Masergy sellers before, perhaps you thought they were too complex, too expensive. We're marrying these two companies together to bring out the benefits of both, and so that's where we're at.
Thank you. Mike, we'll go over to you. So we started this off talking about recession. We talked about Bridgepoint, maybe helping people do cost reduction. Guy Luby came up here and told a story, a really great story about kind of what you guys do in the optimization, and he talked a lot about kind of telecom expense. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about the telecom expense, kind of, call it wedge in the door, how that kind of helps you kind of see other products within there that you can kind of, get a broader view into?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think the approach, it starts with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Folks need food, water, and shelter to start, and there's some necessities that they have. Folks are under pressure to cut costs. They don't know their costs, and it's not necessarily a sexy topic, but it's an opportunity to talk with someone about a very real need, something that probably came out of their budget meeting or out of their budget cycle that they need to address. So to talk to someone about visibility into your expenses and maybe some opportunity to find big savings by analyzing that spend that they have is a really good strategy, I think, to get into it. So BCM1 has been investing in TEM services for years. It was a passion by the original founders, invested in in-house proprietary software, and folks have used it for years to use it as a wedge to get in. At this time, when you do have a lot of economic pressures, it's a great story and a great opportunity to get in and talk about the network and saving costs.
Great, thank you. One of the slides we saw earlier was about IT automation, Allison, right? So Lumen runs one of the largest networks in the world. I think by its number, it is the largest network in the world. You must have a lot of automation within the network to kind of keep the lights on. So how are you helping customers with those types of things? When you think about like reduction of staff, optimizing what employees do, truthfully, like keeping the lights on is not that sexy I don't want that from a job function. Everyone wants to say, hey, I don't want to do IT. Let's automate it, let's outsource it, right? Tell us, like, from a Lumen perspective, how are you leveraging what you do in your own network, and how are you productizing that or bringing that to market with your customers? Because it's not necessarily something that I think we always know Lumen for, right? So love to hear a little bit about that.
It's such a fascinating area right now, and I'm sure many of you sit with clients and partners, technology partners, and probably spend a lot of time thinking about automation because it is interesting and really exciting. Lumen is kind of funny. We are highly motivated to bring automation into our business based on being a publicly traded company. We have gone through so many mergers, and of course the street is most interested in seeing you hit those synergy targets as quickly as possible. So of course we're actually quite good at taking cost out. It's a topic we can speak endlessly on. But there are probably just a couple things I would touch on that are, before I would jump into how we actually practice automation or introduce automation to the network. And there are two solution areas we bring to market, general availability you may not be close to, that could help in conversations you're having with customers as they are looking at taking people out of things, not to have a bit of a tough conversation there, but we have a very sophisticated SAP practice, which can be anything from sitting down and doing initial discovery assessments on a current workflow within a business, so a very specific business process, or it could be an actual all end-to-end supply chain productivity blueprint that we can deliver. Lumen can actually go in and do the work associated with refactoring and moving old legacy environments into an SAP cloud or on-premise or at GCP. But we can stand up those modules. We have a really deep bench, over 1,500 onshore and offshore engineers and technicians and practice specialists. Those deals are quite lucrative. So I've had a couple that have been in the $4 and $5 million range up to $20 million. They're usually about 12-month, anywhere from 6 to 12-month engagements. So they're really quick revenue hits. I actually developed a compensation model for partners. We've been brought into a couple of great opportunities, and I've been able to reward those partners handsomely. We have another really interesting area of practice that introduces a ton of cool automation, depending on who your client might be, and that's our Internet of Things practice. We also refer to it as our smart solutions business. So if you watched the Seattle Seahawks game last night at Lumen Field, you may not know that Lumen provides all of the technology inside the arena. So we have quite a few Minnesota Vikings, Texas Rangers, a few others, and a lot of campus environments where we can do all the digital marketing, the digital signage, we can do the smart lighting, the smart parking, DAS, automated systems, integration. We can design and architect that, bring it full scale and implement it. Have a project, in fact, in Orange County right now that will be anywhere from $80 to $100 million. That's a long-term project. It's a 12-year project, but it's a really neat, interesting one. Happy to talk in more detail as you want to get to know that. Sorry, I'm taking a long time here. I have one more topic I'll cover because this is interesting.
We're going to bring the hook.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
Waiting for the hook. We do provide a consulting practice out if you have customers that are interested in how we brought automation into our network using iTential as a platform. We've worked with a couple of very large banks, and these are also multi-million-dollar professional services engagements where we will take the client through blueprints and ideas on how they can take people out of their network so they lower cost and improve performance by leveraging some of those best practices that we've implemented.
Thank you. All right, now Jody, you're going to get the rest of her time. I'm just kidding. So I want to share a chart with you guys, right? This is the Global Supply Chain Pressure Index. It's a new measurement that came out because of supply chain conditions created by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. It combines variables, several indices in transportation and manufacturing, such as those needed related to delivery times, prices, and inventory. You know, the lead time for network and infrastructure due to supply chain issues is having a real impact. I think we're all feeling it, right? Decisions are being made based on who can provide something, how soon can they provide something. That slows down our process, right? So I think we're working on several deals now where it was a colo deal. Now we're looking at a metal deal because the customer can't get equipment for 8 months. So it's real. There's no real sign that it's going to go away. It's been around for a couple years. I mean, it could be around for a couple more years. And you talk about some of the global tensions, there's no predictive indicator that says it's necessarily going away. It does say that it's gotten a little better this year so far, but it's not really where it used to be. So with that said, Jody, we'll start with you. How is Comcast helping alleviate supply chain issues? Because it's a real problem.
Sure. It's a real problem from a networking standpoint. It's a real problem from a customer-facing edge device standpoint. And so I think when you heard Maria on stage before, the words that were being used to describe Comcast, flexible, creative. And so that's why we diversified our service offerings. We offer Cisco, we offer Fortinet, Versa Networks, Masergy's platform that we're bringing in. So we have all these service offerings. We do not, certainly on the customer side of things, we have regular meetings on the supply chain inventory issues, and we have no supply chain issues. I think of Comcast like the Boy Scouts, be prepared, and they have been super prepared throughout this pandemic. Supply chain issues, not a problem, but again, let's get creative. We have so many platforms that we can design a solution that meets your customers' needs, and we can alleviate that supply chain concern.
Great. Mike, same question for you. I know this wasn't one I necessarily teed up to you, but it's a good topic. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I think first and foremost, we have a more narrow product line, and we have invested heavily in vendor management, and that's a key area. And we are big believers in lead indicators to predict future. So when we go out and look at the market and see some conditions, we have been fortunate to inventory certain items, and that has gotten us through. And we do provide managed routers, managed switches, managed infrastructure for customers. And frankly, it's gotten to the point where we just seem to have been on top of it. So we've been able to be a supplier to help customers with that. And again, a lot of our success has come with planning and vendor management. But it's a real problem for sure.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Allison, you mentioned some investments you guys are making. I know we talked about edge metal. You talked a little bit about IoT. What do you see as kind of the major drivers for edge? That was a little bit of a conversation earlier. And I know you run like part of media and entertainment. So love to understand a little bit like kind of what you're seeing in that space as well.
Yes, so the biggest area of business that's leaning into the edge strategy that we're developing would be the online gaming business. So I think somebody mentioned earlier, our global footprint is a real advantage for us. So as these big gamers really have exploded during COVID and of course continue to with all these things around the metaverse and all the growth that's happening with Roblox and all the work they're doing to bring concerts and retail, all of this into the gaming space, they need help building out infrastructure globally, as well in the tier 2 markets. So part of our strategy in developing our edge solution is not necessarily to go where AWS and Azure are, but to go into those areas where they are not. And so we've had a lot of interest there. We're also seeing some interesting applications around database. So there are some really cool software database companies that can layer on our bare metal edge solution, and it allows an ultra low latency dip into those databases. So whether it's the gaming community or not, there's a lot of interest in the financial space and others where we're seeing some good demand there, leveraging some of those software companies.
Great, thank you. Jody, question for you. So, you guys operate, a lot of different entities of business. You guys carry a lot of eyeballs on your network. Any edge coming for Comcast that you're aware of?
So I'll give you a crazy statistic. Allison just made me think of it. So during the pandemic, our network would take a 10% hit just nationwide whenever Call of Duty pushed out an update. Gaming, we had to take into account consumer consumption both on the business and Comcast side. But yes, edge compute, so also think about this as well, right? White boxes. We are all embracing white box solutions that we can push software-defined networking to. So then when it comes to a supply chain issue, well, we'll just go to another white box provider. So that gives us diversity in the way that we can pursue our products and services. And so yes, I mean, and of course, right, Comcast business, so you've got Comcast, you've got NBC, we look across the entire, media, entertainment, connectivity, and design solutions that make sense, across the board for our entire customer footprint.
Great, thank you. So we're going to go to a little bit of a, I'll say a little bit maybe of a controversial topic. And I can't not ask this question. So, there are 3 unique business models on the stage today, right? So, and I'm give you more some legacy names than maybe what you may identify yourselves as today, but we'll say, Lumen's heritage is from being an ILEC, right? We got Comcast as a cable company, and, BCM is a managed services provider. I think Andy referenced a managed solutions provider today. So, for everyone that's out here today, we talk to customers, and we heard Avanish talk about his customer and the choice that they made, and heard Lumen talk about their customer. We have customers ask us all the time when we're looking at services, do you go to the ILEC? Do you go to a Lumen? Do you go to the cable company, for fiber? Do you go to a managed solutions provider that can maybe kind of do it all together? So, Mike, we're just going to start with you and say, what do you see as the advantage for you when you're competing against the 2 ladies on your left and right?
I respect the ladies on my left and right. And I know they have very good networks, and we're customers of their networks. So I think our positioning and our advantage is we have a lot of relationships with various different carriers around the world. We don't necessarily invest in many facilities. We invest in vendor management and service execution. So it's a more lighter organization. And I think our positioning is, a value piece to the customer is you're not signing different MSAs to get different types of services. We basically shop those for you. We have scorecards and all the different vendors that we have based on trouble tickets, implementation, execution, region of the country. And so we piece that together, and then it's one bill, one provider, and then it's a very easy add-on to either add the TEM services or the SD-WAN services into that equation. And I think there's a lot of flexibility we can offer folks because of our buying power. We can do some very special arrangements with folks that may need to move or consolidate. There's a lot of concern right now with real estate. So folks are asking us, can they have some risk mitigation by using BCM1? So those are, I'm going to cut it short, but those are some of the topics.
No, so just a little summarize, like you can do some cost mitigation to take some of the risk out of the business and allow them to maybe migrate some services. I will say, in a couple places, Lumen and Comcast have done a great job of partnering, and you guys talked about it today with some of the direct team, but quite frankly, not always. Meaning there are segments of business that aren't going to allow us to partner. And I found BCM is this great loophole sometimes where it's like, customer has AT&T fiber or has Lumen fiber, and maybe that particular vertical doesn't lend a partner. No, you guys have been great, and it's kind of a nice little loophole there, Mike. So, the little one I found with you guys. So, Jody, we'll go to you next, right? So when you look at Comcast compared to, like I said, I don't want to put the term ILEC because I know it's changed, but love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say, I go out and meet with customers all the time. Friday I went out and met with a customer, 25 sites, U.S. domestic customer. And so when you ask them, right, why do they partner with cable companies and specifically Comcast? It is because we have the best last mile connectivity in the country. Customers want to partner with somebody that they can reach out and touch. I get less questions about the products themselves, but the people that support it. They want those SLAs. They want a 4-hour replacement in case they have a problem. So those are the types of foundational conversations that get in the door with customers, and then we talk about our advanced services, our advanced platform. And like we're all saying, I think on stage, the power of one supplier working with one to give you all the advanced solutions, connectivity together. Networks are becoming increasingly complex. I am seeing less of, one vendor here, let's pick another vendor for this, let's do this for security, let's do this for SD-WAN. Customers, for fault management purposes, want it all in one box, one vendor, one relationship to manage. Even billing motivates them. Jody, can I get this all on one bill? And that, it's not a technology conversation, it's a convenience conversation. So it's the people, it's the process, it's the technology. All of those things can be delivered as, traditional cable co, and that's where we excel.
Thank you, Jay. Allison?
I'd have to say our network. I think there are lots of wrappers we put around things to try to make the experience our key differentiator. A lot of customers, if you are looking in the large enterprise space globally, they're looking at our ASN, which is number one, deepest peered. We actually do a private peering strategy or architecture, which is different. So it does allow for the free flow of that traffic and reduces capacity constraints. We have the greatest number of dedicated connections into the public clouds, over 2,200 data centers around the world. What that really means for your clients, of course, as everything is moving to the internet, as everything is moving to the cloud, the end-to-end performance is going to be more stable. There will be fewer hops. There's a statistic that says something like 65% of traffic that originates on Lumen's network stays on Lumen's network. So as we think of low latency or anything that's happening on our devices, that experience is going to be superior across that network.
Great, thank you. So we do have a couple minutes for questions. Anyone have some questions out there? I see Saad in the background. Will you get him a microphone?
Thank you, Becca. Just curious before I ask the question, anybody in the audience manage IT? Like, there's got to be supplier people. One. Anybody else who would be a customer? No, so just the two of us, okay. Oh, a lot of the theme here, and I think Miller and Dom got a panel later, IT is being asked to be business leaders now. Right? And one of the scariest things in my IT career was standing in front of the CFO and asking for money, right? And in this new world, and especially with what's happening financially in the markets, there's a lot of pressure where now IT people, IT managers, CIOs have to go be salespeople. How can we help our customers be better salespeople to get the resources that are harder to come by in every company now?
I think it is really, and I heard a lot of people say this already, but it's asking really good questions throughout that entire discovery process, building deep relationships across multiple contacts within the business so you can truly understand how to help them shape their strategy that, of course, lands on whatever that business outcome is that they're trying to achieve. So I don't think that happens rushing in and talking about solutions and products and all those things. I think all of you know this probably more than anybody. So we are working certainly within our sales organization to build out programs that help our account directors ask better questions and even come back and plug them in. We've hired someone that was a CFO. So if you are doing a large deal with us and you want to actually have this gentleman come in and help construct an ROI, he will even provide some questions that are really useful to arm that IT executive for his conversation with a CFO.
Anyone else?
From the Comcast Business Mastery perspective, I don't know if you realize, but our organization has 78 sales professionals to help you do that sales discovery that you need to do with the IT, staffs and leaders. And I'm thinking about that customer I went to go visit on Friday. I was shocked. They had 16 IT staff on board for, a 25-site company. And so the key theme was automation, right? So back to that conversation about how do we demonstrate, that we automate services for them and they can sell that to their CFO when they need more money, more funding. The particular customer I'm thinking of, they said we were saving them $100,000 by moving to our Versa, security platform and SD-WAN. And I said, well, what do you plan on doing with that $100,000? We plan on reinvesting it with Comcast Business. We want Comcast Business Mobile. We want other products and services. And so I think what we see is we all wedge ourselves in with an initial network design, and we keep having that conversation. We keep, building the account, building into the account, and we sell more products and services that way.
Maybe I can add to it. I love the question. I think there's a lot of deals that have been doomed from the IT staff that can't sell it to the CFO. I've seen it firsthand. I see where that comes from. So I think the first piece is in the decision-making tree that you're calling on, who is the ultimate authority? How do we get to them? How do we build their case effectively? And a lot of our strategy is, can we just sell it with you? Can we get in front of them? Can we do a briefing on site? Is there any way we can help eliminate your sales pressures and help make that case for you? But I think it's arming them with all the evidence that they need to make the case, because it's going to be tougher and tougher.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions? Anyone else out there? I think we're good. Yes?
Good.
Thank you all. Jody, Mike, Allison, great job.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for the partnership.